If you are just joining us on Facebook Live, I'm Lauren Van Hemert from RDU on Stage, and I am with my friend Timothy Locklear, who is the artistic director of NRACT, and he's here to do another one-on-one interview with Rebecca Johnston. And I'm very excited about this one. To learn more about your career, Rebecca, because like I said, I loved you in Pippin. My mom and I thoroughly enjoyed that performance.
Thank you.
And if you have any questions, please type them into the Facebook comments on the RDU on Stage page, and I will see them and make sure Tim gets them. And thank you both so much for doing this.
Thank you for allowing me to. Everybody says Rebecca, but everybody calls you Becky J. I'm so glad you wanted to do this with me, Becky.
I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to it.
I am too. I was telling Lauren earlier, I've done a lot with RDU on Stage since the pandemic has gone on. And when she asked me to start thinking of other people to start interviewing and stuff, you were one of the first people I thought of. And I have to say, I've done some interviews and I'm more excited about doing the interview with you, not only because of you being my friend, but because of the history that you have here in the Triangle. And I'm so excited about doing this with you. So let's start out and let's talk about, were you raised here in the Triangle and when you went off to school? Let you just tell us a little bit about that, because honestly, I don't know.
No. I was born here in Raleigh in Rex Hospital, the one that was on St. Mary's Street. Grew up here, went to school here. Let's see, I went to Temple Baptist. I went to Millbrook. When I went to Millbrook, it wasn't just elementary, it was 1st through 12th grade. I went to J.Y. Joyner. I went to Daniels, which is now Oberlin. I went to Needham Broughton. I graduated and I stayed in town and went to Meredith.
Wow.
I majored in history and political science.
For some reason, I thought you went to WC or UNC Greensboro. That's what I had in the back of my mind.
Nope.
And you were political
science and history, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Wow. See, learning something new already.
And then I moved down to South Carolina and lived down there for 3 years. I worked for the County Department of Social Services. And then I got my master's in social work at the University of South Carolina and came back to Raleigh in 1978.
Oh, so you know about COLA. Where did you work? You know, they call Columbia COLA.
Yes.
For those of us who are from South Carolina, I know that. But where did you go in South Carolina? Because since being from there, I'm curious.
I moved to Mullins, South Carolina.
I know where Mullins is.
I moved to Mullins and I worked for the Marion County Department of Social Services.
Marion County.
Yep.
I got that the other day. People there's very few people who have heard of Clio, South Carolina. And so I know where Mullins is in that area.
I didn't have to drive to Florence to go to a movie.
That's true. That is true. So when you came back to the area, with you not majoring in theater and stuff like that, what got you started? Had you always been involved in high school or college, or so how did you first get involved in the performing arts?
Well, I grew up in a household that valued the arts. We valued music and performing arts. We didn't go to plays, but we did Friends of the College. If you know anything about that series, it was a concert series where they brought people in. They had operas and orchestras and all this. And the tickets for the season were like $5. It was at State in Reynolds Coliseum. So I grew up going to those. My family loved music. My father sang, my mother plays the piano beautifully. And so we always had albums. Oh, I loved Carousel, Oklahoma, and The Sound of Music. I wore those albums out. But anyway, never thought about, except just as I'm singing the songs, and in your mind, you just kind of act like you're, in the play. But I never really thought about doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward to when I moved back to Raleigh in 1978. My sister Peggy was a senior in high school that year. And she could go see Cyrano de Bergerac at Theater in the Park and get extra credit. So we went, and we fell in love with Theater in the Park. So we went to see all their plays for the rest of the season. Well, that spring, they were going to have auditions for Man of La Mancha. And Peggy said, let's audition for Man of La Mancha. And I'm like, okay, all right. So I'm driving home one day, and I hear that Raleigh Little Theater is having auditions for Camelot. And we'd never auditioned for a play. And we thought, well, let's go audition for Camelot as a practice. So we went. I got in the chorus of Camelot. Bird in the Hand's worth two in the bush, and it took off from there.
Nice. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I'm going to show this down here. This is Oklahoma, correct?
Correct.
This is Camelot. I didn't have Camelot. This was Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So this is some of your earlier work when you first got.
At different theaters, yeah. Yeah, down in the corner, it's Joe Brown and me in the chorus of Oklahoma. And Joe Brown taught me it was that particular scene. We all had to exit from stage, and everybody was peeling off left and right. And Joe Brown took my hand, and she said, we're going to exit up center.
Up center, so you could get the longest time and be seen. Now, that's a trick. I think we call that being a ham, correct?
No.
I know that while I have this up for a moment, I know the center one is one of your favorite shows, Baby. I think this is the first time that you were in Baby. And the one where you're in the leather, you were in Pippin.
No, Godspell.
No. Godspell. I'm sorry. I always get, for some reason, I get Pippin and Godspell mixed up in my head all the time. And then I know one of these is Maine, but I'm not sure which one.
It's the one in the green blouse.
In the green down here.
On the ladder.
And then the one at the top.
That's the chorus of Camelot down at NCT.
Okay, at NCT. Okay, I just wanted to share some of that earlier. So this was around the time when you first got there and started, and you got into the chorus of Camelot at RLT. Now, was this in the amphitheater? Or was it in the Sutton?
Oh, it was main stage. Definitely main stage. Right. Can I tell a quick story about this? About auditioning? Okay, Linda Bamford. Which I want to send all my love out to her.
Yes.
And Michelle. Yeah. Anyway, Linda taught at Meredith College. She was Linda Solomon when I was at Meredith. And I think it was my senior year, they were doing Carousel. And I went, I'm going to audition for that. I know that. I love that show. I'm going to audition for that. So I went to audition. And it was last minute, and I knew the song "If I Loved You," right? Well, I was auditioning for Julie's Friends. Okay, so I get up on stage, and Linda is out there, and Jane Sullivan, who was the musical director, and I said, I'm Becky Johnston, and they said, well, what are you going to sing? And I said, I'm going to sing "If I Loved You," and Jane Sullivan said, oh no, you have to sing a song from the part. So they handed me "When I Marry Mr. Snow," which I kind of knew. So I'm singing it. And when you get, there's a part where she says, he'll set me on my feet and I'll say kind of sweet, well, Mr. Snow, here I am. Well, when I got to that came out like Mae West. Well, Mr. Snow, here I am. Jane Sullivan and Linda Bamford laughed themselves silly and said, thank you very much, and laughed me off the stage. Well, it hurt my feelings. I didn't realize really what I'd done. So when I show up that was in 72 or 73. When I show up in 1978 at RLT to audition for Camelot, I walked in and the first person I saw was Linda Bamford.
Linda Bamford.
I had no idea she was connected with the theater at that time. So I went over to her and I said, Miss Bamford, you probably don't remember me. And she said, no, Becky, I remember you. And I said, well, okay. The only other time I auditioned for a play, you laughed me off the stage. And I would really appreciate it if you would leave the auditorium when they call my name. And she did.
Wow.
Well, I never let Linda forget that. That became a running joke between us, that she laughed me off my stage at my very first audition.
So I'm curious, in any other auditions, did she, once you come up to audition, did she leave every time?
No, she didn't.
So I know that you said that being in Camelot, you owed a lot to Mr. Newell.
Newell Tarrant.
Newell Tarrant, who was the artistic director at Raleigh Theater. You said that I think he cast you in Camelot, correct?
Well, yeah, in the chorus. In the chorus. He picked Becky Beatty and I out to have one line each, and we did that. But that, what Newell did, I don't know what Newell saw in me at that. I have no idea. But he started putting me in a small role, a few more lines, and kept increasing and taught me, I mean, it was, like I said, I don't know what he saw, but whatever he saw, he acted on. And that gave me the opportunity to grow and learn and start building on, whatever talents I had and using them.
I think we all have those, I say, mentors or angels that come along. You can call them whatever you want to. That's what I said about Joanne Bastian, who gave me my opportunity. She saw a hunger and a thirst, and I feel like we're forever indebted to those people who saw something and wanted to give us a chance.
Right. And I'll add Jack Hall to that too, because Jack, the very next year, cast me in The Mousetrap, and that was a pretty substantial role.
I am going into. I want to make sure I'm sharing the right thing, and then we're going to go on. This is. I think I have them out of order, but you shared this with me, and I thought it was so funny. And you said it's one of your favorite reviews.
Yeah,
and it's a Brigadoon, and they had the nerve to say that Becky Johnston is too brittle to be believable as a New Yorker Tommy left behind. When I read that, I was dumbfounded knowing you, because I just can't see you being brittle on stage and anything like that. And we know it's one person's opinion. So I'm curious to know why you love that review so much.
Well, because I looked at it and I just burst out laughing, because I'll tell you the truth, I probably was brittle. That was an outdoor show. It was hot. It was sweating. And by the time we got to that little bar scene that Tommy's fiance is in, I had been out there dancing and sweating, and I had to put a wig on. Anyway, but it was one of those situations. But I also thought about it, and I think I said this to you in the email. At least I got his attention.
There you go.
He thought that I was reviewable.
It's very funny. Brent Wilson, who said to me when I was doing Our Town, I was the man in the auditorium, and who stood up and yelled at the beginning of the thing, and I got a mention in a review, and he said, "Hey, at least they took notice," as the man in the auditorium. So I understand exactly what you're saying. But the next picture is the one that I wanted you. This is from The Mousetrap. What you were saying about this is one of your first leading roles. And
it was that was Jack Hall. Jack Hall took a chance on me too, because this was really early. I mean, I'm trying to remember if it was 80,
Mhm.
81.
I'm not
It's
sure.
either 80, 81 or 81, 82. I think it was
Mhm.
80, 81. And so he cast me, and I worked with this great cast. And the woman that is with me is Mary Fran Lyman. And I don't know, you may not have heard of Mary Fran, but Mary Fran was an icon.
I have.
And she taught me many, many things during this show. And she called me up late one Saturday. It was after rehearsal on a Saturday afternoon, and said, "Becky, I'm coming out to your house." Well, Mary Fran didn't drive at night, and she lived on St. Mary Street. And I lived way out here in an apartment with Becky Beattie. And she drove out here in the dark to tell me that Tony Dingman was constantly upstaging me. And she wanted me to know what that meant. And she wanted to teach me how to counter it. And so she did, drove out there to teach me that. And that, I mean, I have certainly used that over the years.
Exactly.
But you know, people like that's just, you know, who take the time to teach you something, that take an interest. And she also, the other thing that she also said was, always carry an orange handkerchief on stage. That way you can always be seen when you want to.
Wow. And I knew when you sent me that I was wondering why she said that. And I'm curious to know, do you always carry a handkerchief whether it's seen or not?
No.
No. Okay.
No.
I didn't know, you know, if it was a tradition or not. So I thought I would ask.
No.
Because, you know, we all have our traditions and our superstitions about being on stage. Yep. So those kinds of relationships, when you're with those actors that you trust and those who want to continue, you know, when I am directing, especially the younger people and those who come and take classes and things like that, I always try to tell them, learn from everybody. Some people say steal. If you got to steal from other people, that to me, that's a compliment. If you see something I'm doing that you can use, take it and learn from it. And I think that's so important. And I guarantee you, there are several people, whether they're working and those out there, who have stolen so much from you for over the years. And that's a compliment
they
to you.
can have it. Because you know what, Ken? No, you know what? If you're on stage and you come up with a bit, you know, and somebody else decides that they would like to do that too, like you said, it's a compliment. And probably, if they're new, you can come up with 10 more bits. You don't have to have the one that they took. You can just let them have it. I agree with you.
Going on to my next share that I am trying to be pretty good at, knowing how to do this, is another review. And I'm used your quote here. You said, one of my best reviews in a play I detested for Joined at the Head.
Oh God, yeah.
And it says Rebecca Johnston is I think it says arc and sophisticated as Maggie, dressed in a silky brown gown with floral overjacket. She is stunning and believable. Always one of Raleigh's best actresses. Miss Johnston is opening new dimensions in her skills as a leading lady. But then there's the play.
Yeah.
And so I just, you know, I had never heard of the play.
And there's a good reason for it.
But you know what? You can get good reviews for bad shows too. So
yes,
if you got to put in what you can get out of it.
You can, and I will say this: that was an REP, Raleigh Ensemble Players production, and as bad as the play was, in my opinion, not necessarily the production, but just the play itself, the script. REP was always you know, pulling things that were different. They were their role
Mhm.
in the theater community at that time was to bring new, maybe controversial, you know, works into the community.
Mhm.
So I mean, I give them all credit for that, and I don't want
Mhm.
anybody to think that my dislike of that
Uh,
play.
And I was
You
not trying to put you on the spot. The Raleigh Ensemble Players was one of the first theaters I started going to when we first moved here to Raleigh,
Mhm, mhm.
and their presence is deeply missed, and no one, you know, here in the Raleigh area has been taken that place, and they're missed tremendously.
Yes,
And
yes,
I
they are.
think they did some very wonderful, provocative type work that I
Mhm,
had the pleasure of being able to see. But at the same time, I have been told, and Joanne Bastian told me this. She said, you know, you got to have a feeling about the show. You can hate the show and still do it, but you got to
mhm.
have some sort of feeling. You can love it or hate it, but you can't just get up there and don't really care one way or the other.
Right.
Uh,
That's very true.
Whether you're directing it or acting it, you know,
Mhm,
you got to have some sort of feeling. And so I don't think it's bad to look, you know, the way you feel about the show itself. You
mhm,
brought something to a role in a show that you didn't particularly care for.
mhm.
So the next thing is something that I know is kind of infamous here in the Triangle. Um, and we won't spend too much time on it, but I will share it. And it's the infamous Frankie and Johnny that was with Raleigh Ensemble Players, and you graciously found the full page write up about not only Frankie and Johnny, but Equus at the same time, and about the nudity here in Raleigh and whether it was needed here in town. And I know this is you and Mike
Right.
in Frankie and Johnny, and this is the picture that we could find. But talk about that time and how it was about Frankie and Johnny and I know that was another Raleigh Ensemble Players show.
Yeah, it
Um,
was. It was. Um, well, it just got to be this sort of big thing, and especially with the article in the paper. REP was doing the nudity. RLT and Equus was not, you know,
mhm.
and they were just sort of, I don't know. So what? Either
Exactly.
way, yeah, that was
Mhm,
my feeling. So what? Well, let me back up a minute. That was my feeling until that article came out.
mhm,
And since I grew up in Raleigh,
mhm,
my I believe both of my grandmothers were still alive in Raleigh.
mhm.
And I knew they were doing this article, but I didn't know that it was going to be that three-quarter page
Mhm.
thing on
Yeah.
the arts and entertainment of the Raleigh Times. And I was uncomfortable. I was uncomfortable with it. I was uncomfortable going back to work the next week.
Mhm. So
Um,
when the article came out, and let me go back, but as an artist, when you were doing Frankie and Johnny, you didn't think anything about it. As an artist, you know it was in there for art's sake.
exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
it was society and the article that made it
Uncomfortable.
hard. So was there any repercussions, you know, for it when it came out in the paper for you? Um,
No, not repercussions necessarily, but I did get some comments at work that were, well, they fall under the category of the Me Too movement these days.
yeah.
You
Mhm,
know,
mhm.
but that, you know, it was what it was,
Yeah.
and yeah, I did it, and I was glad I did it, and I was proud of doing it.
And they
So,
said, and from just talking to other theater people and reading some of the reviews, it was a wonderful show. I mean, and you know how big of a Terrence McNally fan I am.
right,
And
right.
I think one of his most well-written scripts that he has, and
Mhm.
tells a beautiful story of two
It
people.
does.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The you and Mike also did Cat on a Hot Tin Roof
Yes, we did.
at Tip, right?
No,
What?
no,
Or
Thompson
was
Theater.
that not okay?
Thompson at State. We
I
were
ha-
guest performers.
okay, gotcha. So we're going on from that, and this is the picture of him playing Big Daddy and you playing Big Mama in Cat on a Hot Tin Roof.
Yeah, that was
Um,
that is one of my favorite roles and favorite productions. It was
mhm.
everything about it was just stellar. I mean, uh, everyone who was in it, the sets, the costumes. I mean, it was just one of those plays that everything had was given the detail that it needed, and
Mhm.
I loved doing it. Absolutely loved it.
So what can you tell me? And my next thing is the review from it. It says the things that I keep noticing about your reviews. It talks about your growth.
Mhm.
You know, Becky Johnston has grown to be a lovely woman and makes Big Mama forcible and believable. And so I think the things that I keep seeing over the time, and I really have, thanks to you, dug up all this stuff and learned a lot just about you and your
Mhm.
journey as an actress. And I'm curious at this point, I know you had done several productions and learned from other people, but did you take any acting classes or coach with anybody to continually to grow this way?
I took I took two classes. I took a class with Fred Gorlick, who was a director here, well, with Fred, and I took one that Sarah Wood was teaching at.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was it. Yeah, I just picked up a lot from. You just learn so much from people who have done it for a while. If you just watch and listen
Mm-hmm.
and study them and study their habits and their practices and how they treat the profession, you learn from that. And I was lucky. That's all I can say. I was just really lucky. Somebody else that I learned a lot from was Lauren Watkins, who's a dear family friend. But he went to East Carolina and he studied the Meisner method down there. They have a big,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and he did Baby with me the second time. And I learned a lot about the Meisner method from Lauren. And that stuck with me. And I really approach it. I don't know the whole thing, but I take bits and pieces of that, and that's how I approach a role. But again, no, people just worked with me. I learned from Jack Hall when Jack directed me. I learned from Haskell when Haskell directed me. You know, and I went from doing what I thought I would always do, musical theater, to doing so much more than I ever dreamed I would be able to do. I have.
Mm-hmm.
It has surprised me that people have cast me in many roles. I'll put it that way.
What has been one of your most surprising roles that you think you've gotten cast in?
Let me.
And I know that's a hard question, but
Well, Big Mama for one. Steel Magnolias, Malin at RLT. I didn't think I would be cast in that.
that doesn't surprise me. I mean, it doesn't surprise me that you were cast as Malin, as having director's eyes on. That doesn't. I have to say that doesn't surprise me. But
well,
you as an actor,
I know one that was my biggest, well, not biggest, but it was a huge surprise at the time, and it was a musical. Was I Do I Do? That's a two-person musical, and I think I pointed that out to you. I came to RLT in the spring of 1979, and that show was produced in the fall of 1981. And I was like, what am I doing here? Why did he do this?
Mhm.
But
I
that, I mean, that
had
was
some of those pictures from
I did.
I
But
had
it
some
was,
of the pictures from I Do, but they didn't come out to
oh,
show
that's fine.
very well.
That's okay. But it just again, you know, I thought, well, if he cast me, he must think I can do it, so I better get on with it, you know, and do it.
There you
The
go.
other one, I'll tell you the truth, Tim. I was surprised that you cast me in Mothers and Sons. There was some stiff competition in that, and I was thrilled, absolutely thrilled that you entrusted that to me.
Well, thank you.
Because
And
that was,
before we get finished, of course, we'll talk about Mothers and Sons.
yeah.
And there is a story there, and I'll share it with you when we get there. I want to share with everybody because I was amazed when I asked you to do this, and we've been working on it. I asked you about a month ago, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a while, and
Yeah.
you've been gracious by going and giving me stuff. And one of the things, I knew you had directed a couple of shows, but I'll tell you, I was so impressed when I went and looked up the Darrow stuff you did, and knowing that it was about, you know, that y'all performed it and the links. I had never heard of it, and that I am so impressed, and I want to read it now, and it's just something that I am just dumbfounded with, and that you did this history of the North Carolina Supreme Court, you know, and that y'all would do it at an annual meeting. So people, those are things that I'm just so impressed with. And what got you involved in the directing part? Did somebody come and say they saw you in directing, or was it something that you wanted to do? Because I never thought I would direct. I never thought I would.
I never thought I would either. And the first thing I directed was, I was on the board at REP in the early days, very early days. And we were talking about we had the season or whatever, and at a board meeting, I can't remember if it was, I guess it wasn't Roy, it must have been Tom. Anyway, said, what we're doing these, it's 3-1 acts. We want women. Why don't you direct one of these? And I'm like, well, no. And they said, no, try it. It's short. You can do this.
The win, lose, or draw.
Yeah, win, lose, or draw. And the one that I did, I think the reason that it turned out well, number one, was the actresses. Oh my Lord. They were fabulous. But it was about a child who had been removed from a home because it was a child abuse situation. And the mother comes to try to get the child back. And I had a master's in social work, and I had been a protective service worker for a short period of time. And I thought, I know these people. I can do this. And so I think that's why that one turned out particularly well, because I knew it. You know, there wasn't a whole lot that I needed to do to let the actors know, you know, what I wanted or what needed to come out of it. So, and that's what started me off.
Nice.
And yeah.
And then you directed one of them that I was surprised at, is Burn This, which is a play I would never touch. It's you know, I'm being honest, you know me, I'll be honest, it scares me. It's not that I don't like the show, but as a director, I just don't think I could go there. And so I'm very impressed, and that you did Burn This. I really am.
I was pleased that they let me do it. I love that show. And yeah.
And then I don't mean to jump around, but I'm going. I want to talk about all this stuff that, you know, you've done performances at TIP, and you were involved with Actors Comedy Lab. I've got all these lists here, and I'm not counting. But I know you were involved with the Triangle Dinner Theater. You did Baby Twice there. That's where the Godspell was. Yep. And Robber's Bridegroom, I think. I don't have
Yeah,
that
the
from me. I
Robert
think
Bridegroom.
one that,
And
Mhm.
I directed 1940s Radio Hour there.
Yes.
It was not that good.
um, and then you did Theater Fest at Thompson. You've done several of those, and you did Still Magnolias there.
Yes, it's Claire Reed.
And you were Clary as
Yeah.
Clary, which I have to say, having directed Still Magnolias 3 times,
Mhm.
Clary, and everybody thinks Malin and Shelby and Truvy are, I think the best acting that you can pull from an actor is as Clary and as a nail in that show. I
Yeah.
love those 2 roles in the show. So I would love to see you as Weezer. Of course, I know you would knock it out of the park as Weezer too.
I would like to be Weezer.
But the thing that I think I am most impressed with is that you've been involved with Raleigh Theater for 41 years. I know that's a lot. Not talking about how long it is, but that you have taken that place and it's been a home. And that I know that's where I got my start back in the area, and it will always be home for me. It's a special place, and that for someone to stick with an organization for 41 years, as a volunteer, as an actress, it just speaks so much. And we won't even go into everything that you've done at RLT. That we'll touch on it, but there's I know that you just told me a little while ago you were involved with Haskell's first show as stage managing Annie there, and I didn't know that. So did you stage manage a lot of shows there? I know you've done a lot of volunteering than off stage, but have you stage managed? You probably run lights. Did you ever run the reel to reel?
Tim, I have done everything that you can do, literally. I have done everything that you can do on a show at RLT except to play in the orchestra.
Wow.
I've done costumes. Haskell and I designed the costumes for the first production of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. And I ran the reel to reel. The original light board, oh my Lord, it would change scenes without you doing anything. It was mechanical. It was a mechanical board. And it would make this hum, and you could hear it start. And so you'd have to go over to the preset board and start. You'd wipe out the preset from the next scene and put the current scene's set in it, so that when the thing switched, the lights wouldn't go off on stage.
The times that I stage managed there, of course, we had all the new stuff, and I heard the tales of the reel to reel, the horror stories about that. And the only thing that I guess was left over after all those years was the speaker that you had to listen to up in the booth.
Right.
And when I was doing Rocky Horror, it started smoking one night, and I couldn't hear the show because we had to take it loose because it started smoking. So I was calling a show based off of visuals and trying to hear through the booth. So and all of that's been replaced.
Well, and that's when you were stage man. They had moved the stage manager up to the booth. The stage manager used to be where the assistant stage manager is now, backstage. Stage right, over in that corner. And sometimes you had sets that you couldn't see through.
Wow.
So you were just calling shows on a wing and a prayer sometimes. But I stage managed a number of shows, and I actually love doing it. I really like stage management.
I love stage managing too. Don't know if I'll do it with age comes wisdom, and with wisdom comes knowledge. And it would have to be a mighty special show for me to want to direct, and with a special director. I would love to work with Patrick as a stage manager sometimes, but my schedule just won't let me. but that, it would have to be something very special for me to go back and stage manage. I want to change courses and talk a little bit about your family and their support through all of this. And I know that these two young men right here are very, very special. They're your nephews.
Yes, they are.
And I know your mother's been very supportive and your father was supportive over the years. Tell us about how they've supported you throughout the years and about these two young men right here.
Okay. Aren't they cute?
They are. They are.
Well, let's see. My mom and dad, like I said, we've always loved musicals and everything. And so, that's why I started doing those musicals. And of course, they came to every single show. And they used to give the opening night parties for shows.
Wow.
Yeah, they'd get, and you know how big a musical cast can be, but they'd give that party. And the party would start late, of course. And they would stay up, man. They would stay up with everybody, and finally, whenever 2:00 or whenever they wanted to go to bed, they'd just tell everybody good night and go upstairs. And people would say, "Well, do we need to leave?" And I said, "No, you don't need to leave."
And how many people woke up the next morning on the floor? Because I've been to those kinds too. That you didn't leave, you just ended up sleeping on the floor.
Really. And I don't know, they just always really supported it, and they were happy for me that I was doing it. And I'd miss some things, family things or whatever for rehearsal or excuse me, but they always understood that. And they always had a very special flower arrangement they would send me every opening night. And my mother, I'd say maybe 30 years ago, started holding book for me. She held book for me for Mothers and Sons, and I know that surprised you, especially with that final monologue. But they just, I don't know, they know I love it, they know what it does for me, and so they just support it, and they have supported financially, and the theaters, and it's been a lot to them. And my brother and his wife would come down for every single opening night from Winston-Salem, and my brother would always bring a bouquet of roses for me and present them, to me. He did that for Mothers and Sons. I didn't present them, but he brought them. And yeah, and so when I did Pippin, since my brother passed away 2 years ago, when I did Pippin, Annie came down. She didn't come for opening night. She came on a Sunday afternoon. That's my sister-in-law. And I walked into the lobby, and she had those roses, and I just burst into tears. But they were always supportive. But I got to tell you a story about my nephews.
Please do.
I really thought that I truly thought that I was going to be able to turn them into little actors because of one incident. I did the concert version of Follies at TIP, and they were 5 years old. It was the first thing they ever saw me in. Well, yeah, first thing they ever saw me in. And so that night after the show, when the show, we'd taken our bows and gone off stage, and I played Phyllis, okay? They were going to come meet me in the lobby. And so Anne said to the boys, "Okay, come on now, we got to go see Beck. That's what they called him." And Riley just sat there. And Bart got up, and Anne said, "Come on, we've got to go see her. She's going to meet us." And he looked, a 5-year-old looked at Anne and said, "No." And she said, "Why?" And he said, "Because she will still have on her dress and she won't know who we are." Think about that. Is that not beautiful? I would still be, he understood that I would be this other person, and I wouldn't know who they were. I love that. So I thought,
that's sweet.
He's mine. So the next day I'm talking to him, and I said, "Well, what did y'all enjoy the most? What did you like the most?" And Bart says, "I really liked your song where you weren't sure which person you were, Jesse and Lucy. You know, he said, I like that because she didn't know who she was. And I'm like, I got him too. But they've always been supportive as well. Yeah, I've been very blessed and very lucky to have a family that has surrounded me and really, really supported me in what I like. What I like to do is an avocation.
Because those of us in theaters knows how much of a passion it is and how much time it takes away from our families. Jim made the statement to me one time. He says, you have to have a passion for it as much time as you put in. And then, you know, in 3 weeks, it's over. After putting in 6 to 8 weeks in a show, and then, you know, you may get 3 weekends of performances and then it's all gone. So there's something special. And to have that support.
I have to say this because, and I've never really said it before. I told the story about it. But if there's anybody in my family to thank for me in theater, it's my sister Peggy, because she's the one that had me audition for the first time. And I, you know, if she hadn't said, let's audition, I never would have. I know I never would have set foot in a theater to audition. So I owe all of that to her.
So it's amazing the way things happen when you look at them. And I'm a true believer in fate, that no matter what we try to do, we will end up on the path that we're supposed to be on. We may curve around, but eventually you'll get there. And that, you know, to me, that was meant to be, because, and I'm not going to get emotional. I know how you've touched my life, and I can only imagine how many people out there you have touched that you don't know about, and that other people will never know about, but just in your performances and stuff like that. I'm a true believer it was meant to be. And yes, you owe it to her for saying, let's go audition. Exactly. And now comes the time that you're probably not going to like, but I'm going to brag on you a little bit.
Yeah, please don't.
I have to, that's my job here. But, you know, all your Canty Awards, your if I look today and counted correctly, you've had 12 nominations and you've won 8 times.
Yep.
And there's the list. And I got a couple of pictures that I want us to go through. But you know, it's nice to be recognized for your work. I know that. I think Brent Wilson has 9. I think, and you have 8, tied with Jack Hall for 8. And I'm not sure how many Allison Lawrence has. I know she has a lot. But, you know, this speaks a lot to the recognition of the work that you've done, especially at Raleigh Little Theater. But I'm going to go through, you know, this is Gypsy, right? When I first saw this, I thought to myself, what show is this? Because I looked at the pictures before I started reading anything. And then I realized that, you know, you were playing, is it Tessie? Tess in Gypsy. So, and then I have these 2 great pictures. You and Joe. I know Joe is one of your best friends, and
yes, indeed.
You know, the thing about the beggar woman, you know, she doesn't have a lot of words. She doesn't have a lot of words to use, but there's so much in that role, and to be awarded a Canty for it. And if there's anything you want to say about any of these shows, please do.
I loved that role. That's right up there in my top, say, 3 or 4 favorite roles. I got into that role. I mean, I just submerged myself in that role. And I loved doing it. It was very fulfilling. You know, as an actor, you look back and you go, oh, God, I'd like to do that show again, because I could certainly do this, and this differently, you know. And every now and then one comes along, and in all of them you give it everything you got, but sometimes you just really hit it, and this was one of those. And that's, I'm not bragging, it's not one of those things. I'm very satisfied with what I did with that role. And I, yeah, that's one of my favorites.
It doesn't come across as bragging. As a performer and somebody who's in theater, I completely understand when you've given your all and you're satisfied. There's nothing wrong with saying that. But I have to tell you a little funny thing, and please take it as a compliment. Every time I've seen this picture down here, do you know what I'm going to say?
No.
You remind me of Lucille Ball.
Lucille Ball.
In some of her comedic roles, every time I see that, and I know it's you, that's what I see is Lucy in this picture down here. I think it's great. And then, of course, you just mentioned playing Malin at Steel Magnolias. That set was amazing.
Well, the set was just unreal. Had a workable, but I don't know where Bill got that. Somebody had like a beauty parlor. I mean, literally, with the sinks and the chairs and everything. It was an incredible set. It was a great cast. And I, like I said, I was surprised I got the role. But it, again, you bring things to roles. And the thing that I could bring to this one was going through my sister's death in 1985. And the machines and turning the machines off. And, I could live that moment for Malin. And, but it was also cathartic, as you know, those things can be. So yeah, I was surprised to get it, and I put everything I could into it, and got that.
And it's good that it to me, when you can take a life experience and use it instead of being mired down into your grief and sorrow, that you can be cathartic and use it as a way to heal. I think that's amazing.
Yeah. So I was very lucky to do that one.
This is a show I would have loved to have seen. I've read the script, and I did not know that you were in it with Patsy Clark.
Yes, I was. That was when I met Patsy Clark.
Just knowing Miss Patsy and knowing you, I know this show was amazing. It had to be.
It was a good show.
It
was. And I almost didn't do this show. This show was on the season that Mike died. And I had said I was going to audition for it. I didn't really know it that well, but I knew, the framework of it. Yeah. And I was going to audition. And then Mike died. And it was right. It was not long before the auditions. And I had said to somebody, I can't take that on. And again, and Tim, you'll know this, and I hope everybody else out there will know this too. Whenever a director says something to you, it doesn't mean you've got the part. I just want to throw that out there. Haskell contacted me, and he said, I heard that you aren't auditioning. And I said, yeah, I just don't think I can do it. And he said, you need to think about it. Just think about it. And I said, no, I'm not. And they were like the next day or whatever. And he said, I tell you what. Oh, first you have to understand, I met Mike at RLT.
Yeah, and I was going to say that some people might not know who Mike is out there. If you want to, elaborate as much as you want to.
Mike and I were together for 10 years. So, and I met him at RLT. He was, the person in my life. and he passed away in January of 1999. And so anyway, I was grieving. I was heavily grieving, and just didn't think I could go back to RLT. Plus the fact he lived in a duplex on the corner of Gardner and it's right behind the theater, right at the Rose
Right
Garden.
behind the theater. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, at the Rose Garden. So I had not been over to that side of town. But anyway, Haskell said, "Well, I'll tell you what. Think about it." He said, "I want you to get up and I want you to get in the car. And if you can get in the car, that's a good thing. And if you can crank it up and head in this direction, that's a good thing. If you can't make it, turn around, And he said, if you can make it to the theater, that's fine. Anyway, step by step, in essence, take it a step at a time. So I did. And when I got to the theater, he was standing outside to see if I was going to show up, to walk me into the theater for the first time. So anyway, I was cast, and this show, I've said it before, it saved my life, in a way. I came home and it helped me so much. Patsy was wonderful, wonderful. She helped me more than I can say. So this is a very special show to me because of that. But the other thing is, Tim, when you read that show, it's hysterical. And my mother, God bless her, held book for this one. And the first three monologues that kid that Lettuce does, they start out exactly the same, but then they change as it goes along. And to keep those straight, it was really hard. And my mother sat there and she goes, "Nope, nope, nope, not in this one. That's the next one."
Yeah, because you told me how strict she was about setting on book for you.
She is. She definitely is. There's you don't change an a thee, or an and.
But I knowing you, this was something I didn't know about Lettuce and Lovage, and I knew it was, I knew it was a great show and one that I wish I could have seen. So to hear that it's the one that got you through another grief. Or started you on the path through grief is very important. And I'm sure, the Canty, of course, doesn't make up for it, but it has to have a special meaning too.
It does.
For that.
Yeah.
I had the privilege. I do too. And what they just did for us with Bingo, she is a great storyteller. So I can only imagine what you were like on stage together. It had to be amazing.
It was fun.
And the importance of being earnest. I know it was the last time you worked with Jack Hall as a director, and these costumes that you had on in this show were unbelievable.
Yes. Every single night I put those costumes on, and I was just in awe every single night when I put them on. Vicki King just outdid herself on these. They were, and you talk about clothes make the man or whatever. And as an actor, a costume just gives you that kind of a lift and pushes you forward to where you knew you were going anyway.
Yes, it does.
If it's a costume like this, just imagine putting that on. I didn't have to do anything to get in the character. I just had to put that dress on, and I was. And it was. Yep. They were stunning.
They were. It was absolutely beautiful. That it's just. I think it's amazing. And then here we go into, you're the only person ever to be Raleigh Little Theater's diva twice. You were the first. And that was 2003. Am I right? No.
2004.
2004. Yeah. And then again in 2016, when they had the return of the divas. This next one is just because I want you to tell the story about the crown and Joe I love her shirt, and I couldn't get a picture of it with it saying Diva Support, and the relationship you have for divas and her carrying the crown. I know I felt it. I know how heavy it was.
Yeah, it was big, and you couldn't really adjust it. And when Haskell crowned me that first year, he put it on my head, and it came down, and it hit right here and cut my nose.
Oh, wow.
I was a diva. But yeah, and so it was a joke that, I couldn't wear it. And so the next year, Joe Brown came up with it. Joe said, I'll carry it around. And she did. And that's how it started. So most of the years that I participated, Joe would come and carry that crown around.
Yep. Divas in 2013 is, of course, I had seen you and your work and stuff, but when I did Divas in 2013, the year Haskell passed away, is when I really got to know you.
Yes, it was.
Having been somebody involved in theater and then being away and then coming to a new city and trying to get back involved. It's hard when especially in an area like the Triangle that is so rich with theater, and trying to make your way in and making a path for yourself.
Yeah.
You were so supportive to me. I remember during that time how supportive you were, not only to me, but to everybody. Everybody I've ever seen you work with. But you said, you fit in, you're okay, you're home. And that you were one of the many people who told me that. And I could sit here and name several, but I thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. You're welcome.
No, go ahead.
I enjoyed you during Divas that year. I was so impressed. And what was the song? What was that song? What were the songs you did that year?
I did Not My Father's Son. And then I did the one from When Pigs Fly about being gay. There's something in Kentucky.
Yeah, that one.
I can't remember the name of the song, but that one.
I can't either, but I loved you doing that song. I did. I absolutely loved you doing that song.
There's no color in Colorado. Color in Colorado is the name of the song. And Allison found that song for me. I had never heard of the musical When Pigs Fly. And that was a fun song to do. I remember that year when I did Divas, Allison, I wanted to do Not My Father's Son because I had seen Kiki Boots and the song was so personal for me. And she said, Tim, you're going to have people slitting their wrist in the audience. But what she didn't know and what I didn't tell anybody is I knew my mom would be there that night. And when I finished singing that song, I said, I love you, Mama, to her because she had always been my support. And that song was so personal. And I think, Allison came to me afterward and she said, I realized why, I wanted to do that song, even though it was a ballad and is sad. And then I made up for it in The Color of Colorado. So
exactly, you balanced it out. But you were, Tim, we're talking about me tonight. I want to talk. I mean, what you have given to the community in Raleigh, to the theater community in Raleigh, is wonderful. I don't know. I think we're at a point where I'm not really sure what we would do without you.
Well,
you've taken NRACT and just built it and turned it into what it is, and you're very supportive too. You're supportive to all the artists in the area. It doesn't matter if we're working with NRACT or where we are. And I just want you to know how much I appreciate that, and I love you.
Well, I love you too, and that means so much. Coming from an icon and a legend, and that is what you are to me. I know you said you weren't legendary, but to me you are, and to several others. But when I hear that from people here in the area like you and Bunny Saffron and Miss Patsy and Rod and Nancy Rich, and, you know, to get for Haskell to say some of the stuff he said to me, and, you know, those people, that means it's a validation. I don't want praise and I don't want glory, but I want to know that the work that I'm doing is beneficial and being paid forward. And I will always say that.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm not going to cry. We're not going to sit here and get maudlin and all that stuff. So I'm going on back to the screen, and we'll talk about, well, what happened, Tim? I know what happened. I didn't do that. You said you were surprised.
Yes.
The story about, you know, the story about mothers and sons, and I'm gonna let you talk about it, but you were saying you were surprised you were cast because there was so much talent. I was embarrassed as a director, and for it to be my first time directing at Raleigh Little Theater, I was so embarrassed of the talent that I had to choose from, because it's great to have that, you know, but it's also it's a burden to have that. And you know this, and the other people who were involved, we had callbacks that Saturday, and I went home and I agonized and I agonized, and I called Patrick and I said, Patrick, I got to have another round of callbacks. And, you know, you can say, I always tell people, when you ask people to come and audition, I say, I want you to come and audition for the show, but I'm not promising you anything. I want choices. I want people to choose from it. And there was 5 talented actresses came in that Saturday. And then Sunday, I had you and Gilly come back and read with the guys and I each had 2 other guys, you know, come in and read. And that's the hardest show I've ever had to cast in my life. And that's not talking about your talent. It's talking about how good your talent is. And, you know, there was certain things that Gilly brought to the callbacks and certain things you did. And you earned it. It was not, you know, it was not given. It was earned. Everybody who was in that show, the show was earned. So don't ever think that to be surprised. The thing that I'm surprised most is I worked with Jeannie on the costuming, and I had in my mind what I wanted you in the whole time. And it ended up not being what it was. We found that pantsuit, and it was I said, that's it. You know, I kept picturing you in a skirt and jacket, and it just I never found what I wanted, and then ran across that suit.
I love that.
I know. The thing is this is the first show that everybody in their costumes, I purchased their costumes because they wanted them. They wanted what they got, and I actually paid for everybody to get their costumes to go home. That was a gift from me for everybody to take home, because I just thought it was great. But this was, I didn't want tonight to turn into you know, me talking about mothers and sons, but I did want to end on it. So as a director, this was, I hope he doesn't mind me telling this story. Roy Dix came not as a reviewer, but came to see Next to Normal and sat beside me and watched Next to Normal at NRACT. And he wrote me one of the nicest emails afterwards. And he says, Tim, he said, I know Mothers and Sons is in your heart, your best directing, but he said, Next to Normal to me is your best directing, you know, because of how it flowed. He saw it with different eyes. But he said, I know Next to Normal has a special place in your heart, and it was a great show. He said, don't ever let that take away from you. And it was such a nice email explaining the difference between the two. Right. So, but this, I'm gonna let you tell the audience that people see my post all the time about the show and what it was like to work with these 3 guys for you.
Oh my word. It was wonderful. I don't, it was one of the hardest working, most thoughtful casts I think I've worked with. I just, it'll take me a minute. It meant so much to me. Oh God, Brian.
Mhm.
He just, he just inhabited that character so beautifully, and it was almost impossible to not match him. I know what I'm trying to say, and I'm not saying it very well. It's just
Take
he
your
was so
time.
good. He was so good that you knew you had to step up your game. But he just, it was easy to step up your game because he drew out, he had so much in him of that character. It just drew you out. It just drew it out. And it was, I'll say this, there's a time in a rehearsal, in rehearsal processes where, you know, you're still you and you're doing your blocking and you're doing your lines, and, you know, you're trying to memorize and you're doing all that. And you know, the other people are the characters, but it's still, well, that's Brian, you know, whatever. That went away in a heartbeat with this show, because all three of them just became those characters so quickly that you just, and I think that's one reason why I think rehearsals went really smoothly. I mean, I know you're the director, you probably don't think that, but from my standpoint, the rehearsal period was an easy rehearsal period because of your direction, and because of how I think all of us just immediately understood these people, and we all plumbed the depths of the character early on, you know, and I think that started coming out very early, and then that just gives you so much to grow with, so much to build on from a very early point in rehearsal. It never made any sense whatsoever.
You're making perfect sense, because I've always said that with this show, I have never worked on a show that we spent less time on stage and more time around the table.
Exactly.
Even with Andrew.
Yeah.
And for him, you know, you and I were the ones who had lived through the AIDS crisis. Brian and Chris, nor of course Andrew hadn't, and they, of course, Brian and Chris had read about it, but we, you know, and for them to delve into the characters like that and do all the table work that we did, and I don't take credit for it. It was a true collaboration from Thomas doing lighting, Jones. It was a true collaboration all the way around. Even Yvonne, you know, Yvonne as the assistant director. I let everybody have input on this show, and I'll tell you why. Because I was too close to the show. I wanted it to be done right, but not without input from other people, because it was such a personal story for me to tell. And it would not have been what it was without the four of you, you know. And that's it. There are people that I could sit here and name, and I'll only name one, and that is you, that as a director, I would work on every show with. And there are every director out there that has those people that you want to work with over and over and over again. And it has been my honor to have that opportunity with you. And any directors out there that has a chance to work with somebody like Becky J, it's unbelievable, because you just sit back and you guide. You know, that's my job as a director, is to tell the story and to guide and let you find the character. That's the way I feel like directors are.
Mhm.
And I've worked with directors that said, no, you're going to do it this way. To me, that's not directing. That's dictating. And,
Yeah.
you know, so that's my love letter to you. And it
Well,
was a
mine back
pleasure.
to you is I will work with you in any play.
And
Any day, any play.
well, that means the world to me. To be able to sit down and do this interview with you was something that I didn't, you know, I just thought we would sit and tell little stories, and I have learned so much doing this research with you. And it's made me admire you even more. Now, I didn't think that was possible. Yeah, and those of you watching, yeah, I'm gonna gush and go on about her, because there are people in this area, you young actors out there, if you're watching this or when you see it when it's recorded, sit down and have conversations with the people who've been in the Triangle area and learn the history that's going on here. And you know, there's theaters here now, there's theaters that have been here, there's been companies in the past. And you need to know the history that's been here and hear these stories and learn. I learn every day. And you know, Becky, before we close up, what do you say to actors, and whether they're doing it as a profession or as a community theater, or whether it's a production team, what advice do you want to give somebody after all this time that you've been involved in the arts?
Oh my. Well, first to the actors out there, it doesn't matter if you are a professional actor. It doesn't matter if you are a community theater actor. It doesn't matter if you're an actor in high school, whatever. There are certain things that you need to remember that are true regardless. And it's pay attention to your elders when you're in a show. I mean, that's how I learned. But I'll tell you what, it's very true that if you're not early to rehearsal, you're late.
It's true.
If you're not paying attention during rehearsal, you need to leave. And I'm not just talking about when you're on stage. You need to, now, granted, you can go out and take a break or whatever, but sit there and listen and learn from the other characters. Listen to the director directing other people as well. You'll learn from all of that. But you have to know that you have to treat it as a profession, even if it's not, if it's your avocation and not your vocation.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't get what you need to get out of it, and you can't give what the show needs if you don't do that. You need to study. And just like I said, just pay attention to the other people on stage. You can learn so much from them, positive and negative. Pay attention to the director. And if you're new to it, pay attention to the technical folks, because you wouldn't be on that stage in the audience seeing you if the technical people weren't there. And I just, you know, for technical stuff, you just need to learn everything you can about it. I had wonderful people who taught me about lights, who taught me about sound, you know. And it's always good, I think, for an actor to work tech, and for a tech person to be on stage, even if it's just walking across the stage in a crowd scene, because it gives you an appreciation for what they bring to the theater. And the other thing is, you know, not only do you learn by doing these things, but like it or not, you earn a reputation. And directors talk. They talk to each other.
Really?
They do. They talk to each other. If you're somebody who's consistently late to rehearsal, you're probably not going to get cast very much. So you want to have a good reputation. You want to, they want to know that you're going to be there on time, that you're going to do your work at home, that you're going to learn your lines, you're going to learn your blocking, and that you listen to them. That doesn't mean that you can't discuss something with them. Know that most directors are open to that if you approach it the right way. You know, I'm not quite comfortable with this. You know, can we talk about this? Or, yeah, whatever you need to do, talk to your director about it. Just don't come at it in a positive. You need to be positive about it when you're doing it. I think most directors that are worth their salt appreciate that. They want collaboration, like Tim was just talking about. Oh gosh, what else? I don't know, Tim. What else would you say to him?
I think you have covered it. I always tell people from the time you walk in the building, consider that you're auditioning from the first step you walk into a building, because you are being watched. I mean, that's just the truth. And your reputation is everything you can possibly have in a theater community. And I know I'm talking a lot about community theater, but it also carries over into professional, into school. But you know, the theater grapevine is real, and I choose not to participate, but I have the amazing amount of phone calls that you get to ask about what certain people are like to work with. And my reputation is too important for me to tell a lie. I'm not going to lie about what somebody's like to work with. I'll always be honest. And so think about that as you're out there as an actor, as a production team member. You know, I think that's what's most important. But I'm going to ask Lauren to come back and join us, because this has just been great for me. I don't know about anybody else, but
can I say one quick thing? Can I say one quick thing?
You can say anything you want to.
I've talked about everybody that I've worked with as a director, except for Patrick. And I just wanted to say that I think Patrick is such a marvelous addition to RLT. And he, the collaboration, Tim, that you did with Mothers and Sons, Patrick does that same thing. Patrick and you both want an actor to feel safe. You wanted me to feel safe in this interview today, but he's very aware, and he's brought a lot of passion to RLT. And I just want to say that when I did Pippin, I finally got to work with him in Pippin, and I enjoyed that so much. And I thank him for letting me play the grandmother in that and working with me so nicely with it. That's a very, I'm really glad you're here, Patrick.
Yes. And he's like, I say he's like a brother to me. And I think he came at a very rough time for Raleigh Theater, because Haskell had been there so long, and you know, he had some big shoes to fill. And I don't think, in my own personal opinion, he was the perfect person to come in, and I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Lauren, as always, I say thank you. This has not been work for me tonight. It's just been so much fun.
Well, I've enjoyed being a fly on the wall watching. Rebecca, there is a question from Facebook, so I wanted to be sure that we got to it. Gus wanted to know what kinds of roles pull you back into the theater, and what kind of roles do you prefer?
Oh, Gus, why did you ask that? Uncle Gus is not pleased. Gosh, that's a hard question for any actor to answer. There's always got to, it just has to be, I don't care how big the role is. I don't look at that anymore. Well, actually, what I look at now is I don't want it to be more than about 50 or 60 lines, to make sure I can remember. But no, there just has to be something interesting, I think, about the character. And it can be, whether it's a comedy role or a drama role, a musical role, whatever. I don't really know how to describe it. It just has to be something that speaks to you, that you find interesting. It has to be something that you feel like you can bring to that role. I don't want to take a role that I can just walk through and do. I want a role that challenges me. And so it's got to, I think that's what speaks to me is oh, I could do that. That would be a challenge. Yeah. And those are the kinds of things that interest me now. Something that I can still grow from.
Well, thank you. You have a big fan club on Facebook too, and I feel lucky that I got to see you in Pippin, and I'm gonna keep hope alive that maybe someday I can see you reprise your role in Mothers and Sons, because that's a bucket list show for me to see. So, Tim, make it happen.
Yeah, right. I wish. Believe me, I wish.
I'm
Um,
available. I'm
Patrick,
willing.
did you hear that?
Thank you. Thank you both for doing this. And thank you everyone for watching tonight. Friday night, another Raleigh Little Theater, North Raleigh Arts and Creative Theater favorite, Judy Dove, will be moderating a panel. The cast and some of the creatives behind her Zoom play Haiku will be talking about contextualizing history on stage, and I can't wait for that conversation too. So that'll be Friday at 6 o'clock. It's a little bit early, so you can still watch it while you're eating your dinner and then go about your Friday night activities. If you tuned in late for this one, it'll live on Facebook. It'll be on the website in a few days. And thank you guys again for doing this.
Thank you. And thank you, Becky J.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you. And everyone stay safe and healthy, and we'll see you on Friday. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.